The lawyer's voice cut through the silence like a knife. All assets, house, land, savings, heirlooms, go to your brother, Michael. I sat frozen in my chair, my hands gripping the edge of the table so hard my knuckles turned white. For a moment, I thought I had heard wrong. The words echoed in my ears, blurring into a dull roar. Michael smirked beside me, straightening his suit as though he had just been crowned king. My chest tightened, and my throat burned. How? Why? My father had promised fairness, hadn't he? The relatives sitting around the room exchanged knowing glances, some even nodding as though this outcome was expected. I was the one left with nothing, sitting there like a fool. Michael leaned back casually, his arm resting on the chair. He didn't even bother to hide his smugness. I could feel his eyes on me, drinking in my shock like fine wine. I wanted to scream, to demand answers from the lawyer, but my voice stuck in my throat. Betrayal pressed down on me, heavy and suffocating. My father was gone, and with him went the security I thought I had. Michael leaned over and whispered, "Looks like I win, little sister." The lawyer closed his file, signaling the end of the reading. My heart was still pounding, but Michael seemed eager to add salt to the wound. He reached into his briefcase and slid a small wooden box across the table toward me. "This," he said, his lips curling into a cruel grin, "is all you get." Laughter rippled quietly among some relatives. My cheeks burned hot, but I forced my trembling hands to take the box. It was no bigger than my palm, plain and ordinary, with a brass latch on the front. I hesitated. Everyone's eyes were on me, waiting to see me humiliated further. My brother leaned forward. "Go on. Open it," he teased. I unclasped the latch and lifted the lid. Inside, instead of jewels, money, or even a trinket of value, there was only a thin, sealed envelope. Confusion mixed with humiliation. My fingers trembled as I picked it up. Michael leaned close enough for only me to hear. "Pathetic, isn't it? That's all Dad thought you deserved." I wanted to throw the box at his face. Instead, I stared at the envelope in my hand, my pulse racing. Something about it didn't feel right. But when I tore it open, my heart sank. The envelope was empty. A sharp gasp escaped my lips before I could stop it. My hand shook as I turned the paper upside down, hoping anything would fall out. Nothing. Only silence and Michael's laughter filled the air. "Empty, just like her life," he sneered, loud enough for everyone to hear. A few relatives chuckled along with him, and the sound burned into my skin like fire. Tears threatened to rise, but I swallowed them down. I would not cry in front of him. I would not give him the pleasure. The lawyer gave a small, uncomfortable cough but said nothing. He closed his briefcase and excused himself, leaving me alone with the cruel stares of the family. Michael leaned close again, whispering, "Face it, Sarah. You've always been the weak one. Father saw it. Everyone sees it." His words pierced me, but somewhere beneath the pain, something stirred. Rage. Hot and sharp. For the first time, I saw him clearly, not just as my brother but as a thief who had taken everything that should have been shared. I clutched the empty envelope tightly. This humiliation was the spark. I didn't know how yet, but revenge had already begun to grow inside me. Michael stood tall, towering over me with arrogance. "You never had the strength for responsibility," he declared, his voice dripping with mockery. "I built my life. You clung to Father like a child. That's why he trusted me, not you." I bit down hard on my lip, forcing myself not to shout. His smugness radiated through the room, poisoning every breath I took. "You think this is funny?" I asked, my voice low, almost trembling, but steady enough. Michael tilted his head, studying me like a predator toyed with prey. "It's hilarious. You look like a beggar hoping for scraps. And all you got was air." He chuckled and walked away, but his words clung to me like chains. I sank into the chair, the empty envelope still in my palm. His taunts echoed in my mind. Weak one. Pathetic. Beggar. My fists clenched. I wasn't weak. Not anymore. I closed my eyes and remembered the last night with Father, his voice faint but clear. "What matters most isn't always in plain sight." My heart skipped. Was the box really just a cruel joke, or was there something more? Michael thought he'd broken me, but he had only awakened something far stronger. Later that night, I sat alone in my room, the wooden box resting on my lap. I turned it over, tracing my fingers along its edges. My father's words echoed in my head like a puzzle begging to be solved. What matters most isn't always in plain sight. I pressed gently against the bottom of the box and noticed a faint shift, like wood against wood. My breath caught. Slowly, I pried at the edge, and with a soft click, a hidden compartment slid open. Inside lay a single brass key, small and worn but carefully placed. My heart pounded with excitement. Michael's smug laughter replayed in my head, but this time it only fueled me. Father had left me something hidden. He hadn't forgotten me. He had trusted me. I closed the box and clutched the key in my hand. This was no accident. I whispered into the quiet room, "You tried to humiliate me, Michael. But this isn't over." For the first time since the will was read, I felt the heavy shadow of grief lift slightly. There was more to uncover. Father had left me a path, and I would follow it no matter where it led. The game had only just begun. The key glinted under the lamplight as I held it up, turning it between my fingers. My breath trembled with both excitement and fear. Why would Father hide this in such a way? And what did it open? The wooden box felt heavier now, as if it carried more than just secrets. I placed the key in my pocket, my mind racing. Michael thought he had buried me under humiliation, but Father had left me a clue, one that wasn't meant for him. I ran my hand over the box again, feeling the smooth wood. A hidden panel, a hidden key. What else could be hidden in this house? I tiptoed out into the hallway, careful not to alert Michael. His door was closed, but I knew he wouldn't sleep easily. He was always watching me, waiting for me to break. As I walked past Father's old study, my pulse quickened. Maybe the key belonged here. Father had spent countless nights in this room, surrounded by his books and ledgers. I touched the locked drawers of his desk and whispered, "Is this it, Father?" The key in my pocket seemed to burn with promise. I knew then I had to find what it opened, no matter the cost. The next morning, I moved through the house with forced calmness. My brother's sharp eyes followed me as though he already suspected something. "Looking for something?" Michael asked over breakfast, his tone dripping with fake sweetness. I ignored him, though my heart raced. My thoughts were on Father's study. I remembered the locked drawer on the right side of his heavy oak desk. Could this be the place? I waited until Michael was distracted with phone calls before slipping into the study. The air smelled of dust and old leather. Sunlight poured through the blinds, falling across the desk like a spotlight. I knelt before the drawer and slid the brass key into the lock. It didn't turn. My chest tightened. Wrong place. Wrong key. Before I could keep trying, the sound of footsteps echoed down the hall. I jerked upright, slamming the drawer shut just as the door creaked open. Michael leaned against the frame, his smirk cold. "What are you doing in here, Sarah?" My lips parted, but no words came out. His eyes narrowed, suspicion flashing like a blade. The key burned in my pocket as if urging me to run. Michael wasn't going to let me snoop freely. He was watching closer now. Michael stepped into the study, closing the door behind him with a sharp click. His smile was gone, replaced by something darker. "You think I don't see you sneaking around?" His voice was low, dangerous. I forced my chin up. "I was just." "Don't lie to me," he cut in, his eyes narrowing. "This house is mine now. You don't belong here. Keep snooping, and I'll throw you out myself." My stomach twisted, but I didn't let him see my fear. I stared back, silent. His words were poison, but I refused to drink them. Michael leaned closer, his breath hot against my face. "You always wanted what wasn't yours. Stay out of my way, Sarah, or you'll regret it." With that, he turned and stormed out, leaving me trembling but defiant. I gripped the box tighter in my hand after he left. The threat was real, he could make my life unbearable. But the key in my pocket told me I couldn't stop now. Father had trusted me. That thought alone was enough to steel my resolve. If Michael wanted to play the tyrant, Let him. I would find what the key unlocked, and I would not stop until I did. That night, silence wrapped around the house. I waited until I heard Michael's heavy footsteps retreat upstairs and his door slam shut. My hands shook as I crept down the hall, carrying the wooden box like a lifeline. The study loomed before me. I slipped inside, closing the door gently behind me. My heart thudded in my chest as I pulled the brass key from my pocket. Kneeling before the oak desk once more, I slid the key into the drawer's lock. This time, I twisted slowly, holding my breath. Click. The sound was soft, but it rang through me like thunder. My pulse quickened as I pulled the drawer open. Inside lay a single envelope, thick and sealed. My hands trembled as I lifted it out, half expecting Michael to burst through the door. But the house stayed quiet. I tore the envelope open under the dim desk lamp. Papers slid out, a ledger, handwritten in Father's neat script. Page after page listed accounts, transactions, and names I didn't recognize. My breath caught. These were secret financial records. Father's hidden wealth. I clutched the ledger to my chest. Michael didn't know about this. For the first time, the scales of power shifted. I hid the ledger beneath my jacket and crept back to my room, locking the door behind me. Under the weak glow of my bedside lamp, I flipped through the pages with wide eyes. It was all their bank accounts, investments, and transfers I had never known existed. Father had been wealthier than anyone realized. So why hadn't this been in the will? As I turned another page, I froze. Some sections were torn out. Entire pieces of the ledger were missing. My mind raced. Had Michael already found them? I closed my eyes, trying to steady my breath. The missing pages meant he might know more than I thought. Then, muffled voices drifted through the thin walls. Michael's voice, sharp, cruel, laughing. I crept to the door and pressed my ear against it. Father was easy to control, he bragged to someone on the phone. I made sure he trusted only me. Sarah never stood a chance. The words sliced through me. My brother had manipulated our father. He had twisted everything, ensuring the will favored him. I clutched the ledger tighter, fury burning through my veins. Michael thought he had destroyed me. But now I had proof, seeds of truth that could undo him completely. I stayed frozen by the door, Michael's voice cutting deep into me. You should have seen her face, he laughed, his tone sharp. Pathetic. Father never trusted her. I made sure of it. I whispered in his ear for months, told him she was careless, weak. By the time the will was written, she didn't stand a chance. My hands shook so violently I had to press them against the wall. My chest tightened as tears threatened to spill. He had done this deliberately. My own brother had poisoned Father's mind against me while I had been by his bedside, believing Father's distant look was just illness, not manipulation. Michael's laughter filled the hallway. And now it's all mine. Every piece of it. She'll never find out the truth. But I had already found part of it. The ledger lay under my pillow like a weapon waiting to be used. I slipped back into bed, staring at the ceiling in the dark. The betrayal wasn't just painful, it was complete. He had stolen not just money, but my father's trust. Yet beneath the grief, a spark of rage grew. Michael thought I was powerless. But I was no longer blind. I knew now I wasn't fighting shadows. I was fighting him. The following afternoon, I slipped into town with the ledger hidden in my bag. My mind was heavy with questions, and fear pressed against my ribs with every step. Michael's eyes had been on me all morning, sharp and suspicious. I ducked into a quiet cafe, hoping to breathe for a moment. That's when a familiar voice startled me. Sarah, an older man said softly. I turned to see Mr. Harrison, my father's longtime friend and confidant. His face was worn, but his eyes held a kindness I desperately needed. He slid into the seat across from me. I know what Michael did. Your father told me things he didn't tell your brother. My chest tightened. What do you mean? I whispered. He leaned closer. That box wasn't a joke. He left it for you. He said you were the only one who could be trusted. He knew Michael's greed. Tears stung my eyes. For the first time, Someone else confirmed what I had hoped, that father had believed in me, not in Michael. Mr. Harrison's gaze dropped to the bag at my side. "You've found something already, haven't you?" I nodded slowly. His words gave me strength. I wasn't alone anymore. That night, I spread the ledger out on my desk, combing through each line, each account. But the gaps stared back at me, gnawing at my nerves. Entire pages had been torn away, leaving jagged edges. I ran my fingers over the missing sections, trying to imagine what had been written there. Were they the most valuable accounts? The real treasure my father had hidden? My stomach turned. If Michael had already taken them, he might know where the rest of father's wealth was buried. I pressed my forehead against the cool wood of the desk, frustration threatening to drown me. But then, as I flipped through the last few pages, a faint note scribbled in the margin caught my eye. "Safe, study basement." My breath hitched. My father had hidden more than just a ledger. I traced the words with my finger, a rush of hope flooding me. Maybe the missing pages weren't lost. Maybe they were locked away, waiting for me. But Michael's mocking voice replayed in my mind, "She'll never find it." I clenched my fists. He thought he was steps ahead, but I had the key, the ledger, and now a clue. The hunt wasn't over. The next day, I moved through the house with restless energy. Michael's eyes followed me as I lingered near the study. "What are you smiling about?" he asked, his voice sharp. "Nothing," I lied quickly, forcing calm into my tone. But my mind buzzed with the words scribbled in the ledger, "Safe, study basement." Late that night, I crept into the study with only a small flashlight. The smell of old books and dust filled the air. I crouched near the bookcase, pressing against the wall panels. 4 minutes, nothing happened. Panic tightened my chest. What if the clue led nowhere? Then my fingers brushed against a seam in the wood. I pushed, and with a soft creak, a panel slid open, revealing a small iron safe. My breath caught. I pulled the brass key from my pocket, praying it would fit. My hands trembled as I slid it in. Click. The lock released. My heart thundered. But just as I reached to open it, a shadow fell across the room. Michael stood in the doorway, arms crossed, his expression sharp with triumph. "Looking for something, sister?" he asked coldly. The safe was open. But so was the trap. Michael's footsteps echoed on the wooden floor as he approached, his eyes glinting with cruel amusement. "You think you're clever," he hissed. "That you can sneak around and outsmart me? This house belongs to me, Sarah. Everything in it is mine." I stood frozen, the safe gaping open behind me. Inside lay a neat stack of property deeds, bound with ribbon. My hands itched to grab them, but Michael's presence loomed like a blade over my neck. "You shouldn't be here," he growled. "Maybe not," I whispered, my voice shaking but firm. "But father left more than you think." His face darkened. He lunged forward, but I snatched the deeds and clutched them to my chest. We collided, shoving and struggling, his grip crushing my wrist. Anger flared through me as I fought him, refusing to let go. "You won't steal this from me too," I shouted. Michael's eyes burned with rage. For a moment, I thought he might strike me. Instead, he spat, "You're nothing but a thief." But I didn't feel weak anymore. I had proof in my hands. Proof that father's legacy was bigger than Michael's lies. And I wasn't letting go, not this time. The room shook with our struggle. Michael's grip tightened around my wrist as he tried to wrestle the deeds away from me. Papers flew from the safe, scattering across the study floor. "You're stealing," he roared, his face twisted with fury. "No," I spat back, shoving against his chest with all my strength. "I'm taking back what father left." He shoved me hard against the desk, the corner digging into my back. Pain shot through me, but I refused to let go of the bundle in my arms. My nails dug into the ribbon as if it were my lifeline. "You think anyone will believe you?" he sneered. "You've always been weak. No one listens to you." But something inside me snapped. "Not anymore, Michael. Not this time." I pushed with all my might, throwing him off balance. He stumbled against the chair, cursing loudly. Breathless, I gathered the fallen papers and clutched them tight. My chest heaved, my body trembling, but I refused to look away. For the first time, Michael's smugness cracked. His eyes burned with rage, but beneath it, I saw fear. He knew. He knew I had something powerful, something that could finally turn the tide against him. The next morning, I wasted no time. With the deeds tucked safely inside a folder, I went straight to Mr. Whittaker, father's lawyer. His office smelled of leather and paper, the quiet ticking of a clock filling the silence. He adjusted his glasses as I laid the documents before him. "Where did you get these?" he asked, brows furrowing. I hesitated. "Father hid them. Michael doesn't know about them." Mr. Whittaker studied the papers with care, his lips pressing into a thin line. "These are property deeds. Some of these holdings weren't listed in the will." My pulse quickened. "So they're real?" "Yes," he said slowly. "And if we can prove your father owned these at his death, the distribution of his estate could be challenged." Hope surged through me, almost dizzying. "But be careful, Sarah," he warned. "If Michael forged anything, he'll fight back viciously. You'll need more than these papers to overturn the will." I nodded, gripping the folder tightly. "I'll find what I need." As I left the office, my heart pounded with both fear and determination. For the first time since father's death, I wasn't walking in Michael's shadow. I had a weapon. And I was going to use it. Word spread faster than I expected. Whispers echoed through the family like wind through broken glass. Michael's sister found something. Deeds. Real ones. Maybe the will wasn't as fair as we thought. I felt their eyes on me during Sunday dinner. The same relatives who had laughed at my humiliation now studied me with curiosity, some even with doubt in their voices when they spoke to Michael. He noticed too. His smile faltered, his words grew sharper. "Don't listen to her lies," he snapped when Aunt Claire asked about the deeds. "She's desperate, making up stories to grab attention." But the whispers didn't stop. My cousins huddled together, murmuring about father's secret accounts. My uncle watched me with something like sympathy in his gaze. For the first time, Michael wasn't untouchable. His fortress of arrogance was cracking. As I sat quietly, I clutched the box in my lap under the table, the key now hidden in my dress pocket. I wasn't done yet. The ledger, the deeds, the whispers, they were just the beginning. Father had left a trail for me, and piece by piece, I was putting it together. Michael's smirk was fading. And I was just getting stronger. Michael struck back quickly, like a cornered animal. By Monday morning, he arrived at the lawyer's office ahead of me, papers clutched in his hand. When I walked in, Mr. Whittaker's face was grave. "Sarah, your brother claims the deeds you presented are fake." My stomach dropped. "What?" Michael smirked beside me, his forged documents spread neatly across the table. "My poor sister is confused. She found scraps in father's study and convinced herself they were valuable. These here are the real records." I stared at the papers. The seals looked official, the ink crisp. But I knew him. His smugness told me all I needed, he had forged them. "She's lying," Michael said coldly. "Father trusted me. She's just trying to steal." Mr. Whittaker sighed, rubbing his temple. "This is serious. We'll need verification." Heat rose in my chest, but I kept my voice steady. "Do it. Test both sets." Michael's grin faltered for just a moment, but it was enough to give me strength. As I walked out of the office, my fists clenched. I needed something stronger than papers, stronger than whispers. I needed proof no one could twist. And I would find it. That night, I couldn't sleep. The walls seemed to close in, Michael's lies pressing against me. I sat with the wooden box on my lap again, running my fingers over its edges. Father had left me this, not Michael. He wanted me to find the truth. But how? As I tilted the box in the lamplight, something strange caught my eye. Carved faintly into the bottom was a pattern I had never noticed before. A set of lines, an arrow. My pulse quickened. I held the box closer. The arrow pointed to the corner of the study in the old photograph that hung on Father's wall. I remembered it well, Father sitting in his chair, the very box resting on his lap, his finger pointing not at the camera, but toward the bookshelf behind him. My breath caught. Could it be another clue? I grabbed the photograph from my drawer, staring at father's calm face, his subtle gesture. He had been pointing to something hidden, something Michael hadn't noticed. My hands shook as I whispered, "What were you trying to tell me, father?" The photograph wasn't just a memory. It was a map. And I was ready to follow it. I waited until Michael left the house before slipping into father's study again. My fingers traced the edge of the bookshelf in the photograph. Dust clung to my hands as I pushed against the wooden frame. At first, nothing moved. Then, click. A hidden compartment swung open. My breath caught in my throat. Inside lay a small velvet pouch and an old cassette tape, its label faded but still legible, "For Sarah." My heart thudded. With trembling hands, I pulled out the tape and the pouch. Inside the pouch, I found a key similar to the first one, but smaller, shinier. I clutched both tightly, my chest tightening with fear and excitement. Michael had ransacked this room countless times. Yet father's secrets had remained untouched, waiting for me. I slipped the cassette into my pocket. The walls of the house seemed to echo with father's voice, urging me forward. As I closed the compartment, footsteps echoed in the hall. Michael was back earlier than expected. My palms went clammy. If he found me here with the tape, it would all be over. I stuffed the pouch into my jacket and forced myself to breathe. This secret had to survive. Even if I didn't. I borrowed an old tape recorder from Aunt Claire's attic the next morning. The machine whirred softly as I pressed play. Static hissed at first. Then came father's voice, clear, steady, deliberate. "My dearest Sarah, if you are hearing this, it means I am gone. And it means your brother has tried to take what was not his." Tears blurred my vision. My father's voice filled the small room, strong even in death. I trusted Michael once, but I saw his greed. "That is why I left certain things hidden for you, Sarah. The deeds, the accounts, the true records of what I built. You will know where to find them." My hand shook as I paused the tape. Proof. Undeniable proof. I rewound it, listening again, absorbing every word. Father had predicted Michael's betrayal. He had armed me with his voice, something Michael couldn't forge, couldn't twist. As the tape ended, I sat in silence, clutching the recorder. My tears dried, replaced by a new fire. Michael could laugh, forge papers, twist stories. But he couldn't silence father. For the first time, I knew I had the weapon that would end this war. And I intended to use it. The family gathered again at Michael's request, his arrogance still intact. He spoke loudly at the dining table, waving his forged papers. "She's delusional," he told them. Dragging father's name through the mud with fake stories and false hope. I let him finish. My hands stayed steady on the recorder hidden in my lap. When the murmurs grew quiet, I stood. "You all deserve to hear the truth. Not from me. From father." Confusion rippled through the room. Michael scoffed, but I pressed play. The room fell silent as father's voice filled the air. "If you are hearing this, it means I am gone. And it means your brother has tried to take what was not his." Gasps spread around the table. Aunts covered their mouths. My cousins stared wide-eyed. Michael's face drained of color. "You forged documents," I said, my voice firm. "But you can't forge father's voice." The tape ended, and silence pressed down heavy. Then, one by one, heads turned toward Michael, not with respect, but with disgust. His mouth opened, but no words came. For the first time, he was the one shrinking under the weight of the room. The aftermath was swift. Mr. Whittaker demanded the original will be reviewed, this time with father's recordings as context. Forensic experts confirmed Michael's records were forged, while father's deeds and accounts, those I had found, were real. The tide had turned. Michael shouted, threatened, even tried to bribe the clerk at one point. But every desperate move only exposed him further. The family who once whispered behind my back now whispered against him. His smirk was gone, replaced with clenched jaws and trembling fists. When the ruling came, I sat still, my hands folded tightly in my lap. The estate was to be redistributed, honoring father's true intentions. The properties, the accounts, the heirlooms all reclaimed. Michael's name was tarnished, his pride shattered. He left the room without looking at me, his footsteps heavy with defeat. I should have felt triumphant, but instead, I felt a quiet strength. Father's words echoed in my heart. He had trusted me, believed in me, when no one else did. This wasn't just about wealth. It was about dignity, about truth. And I had won it back. That night, I returned to Father's study one last time. The wooden box rested on the desk, the small key glinting in the lamplight. I opened it gently, placing the deeds, the ledger, and the tape inside. They were more than documents now. They were symbols of resilience, of trust. For years, I had lived in Michael's shadow, mocked, dismissed, forgotten. But Father had seen me. He had chosen me. I whispered into the quiet room, "Thank you, Father. I won't waste what you left me." In the mirror across the room, I no longer saw the timid girl who sat powerless at the will reading. I saw someone stronger, scarred but unbroken, tested but undefeated. Michael had his revenge. But mine was sharper. I hadn't destroyed him with lies. I had destroyed him with truth. As I closed the box, a strange calm settled over me. This wasn't the end of a fight. It was the beginning of something greater. Father had left me more than wealth. He had left me a path. And I was finally strong enough to walk it.